The church bell knows my name. It rings when the daylight dies. I left that town years ago, but it still knows all my life. I was 17 when I learned to run, young enough to fear what I become. Mama prayed beside an empty chair while I disappeared into the midnight air. Every Sunday that bell would ring, calling every sinner and every king. I never thought I knew my name, till every ring sounded just the same. The preacher said the past can be forgiven, the town said some men can't be. Funny how the righteous choose the sinners, they want the whole world to see. The church bell knows my name, it rings across the county line. It knows the roads I've taken, it knows the things I left behind. The church bell knows my name, but it never tells me I'm alone. Maybe every man has ghosts, maybe every ghost knows home. There's a man who sits in the front row, clean white shirt, and the voice kept low. He talks about mercy every Sunday night, then turns his back when the poor need a light. He tells the town who should be ashamed, while nobody asks about his own name. I seen him shake hands behind closed doors, then preach forgiveness from the pulpit floor. I know my sins, I carry them still. I don't need a sermon to tell me what I did, but if I'm counting every stain tonight, let every white collar stand beneath the light. They love a sinner they can point at, a broken man they can understand. Put his face inside the paper, give the town somebody to condemn. But respectable sins don't make less blood. A clean white collar ain't proof for good. You can quote every verse in the book, but the truth still sees what the mirror won't. They say the church is where the guilty go, then why do the powerful sit in the front row? Maybe heaven doesn't care about the clothes, maybe the bell rings for everybody it knows. I don't ask the bell to forgive, I don't ask the town to forget. I spend enough years running from a man I haven't met. The church bell knows my name, it rings across the county line. It knows the roads I've taken, it knows the things I left behind. The church bell knows my name, but it never tells me I'm alone. Maybe every man has ghosts, maybe every ghost knows home. If mercy has a door, I won't ask who holds the key. If judgment has a price, don't make the poor pay it for free. I came back older with a heavier name, the bell was still ringing, but I was not the same. Tonight can change what tomorrow brings. The church bell knows my name. The church bell knows my name. Let the whole damn valley hear. I've carried every sin I've made, but I won't carry their fear. The bell keeps ringing, the night keeps turning. Maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting. Maybe it's finally facing what you're running from. What you're running from. God bless the man who pays. That's what the preacher said. Funny how the poor need mercy while the rich get shown a bed. There's a church beside the county road where every Sunday the faithful go. A man in a suit walks through the door, and everybody stands like they sing the Lord. He bought the new roof, paid the preacher's debt, so nobody asks where the money went. They call him generous, call him a saint, while the widow down the street can't afford her rent. Money makes a sinner look respectable, turns a dirty hand respectable. They say character is what a man should prove, but somehow money changes the rules. God bless the man who pays. God bless the hand with gold. Give him a seat beside the righteous, and let the poor wait in the cold. God bless the man who pays. That's the gospel that they know. When money speaks louder than the truth, everybody bows down low. I worked 10 years beneath the factory light, paid every bill and still lost the fight. The company closed, the town went dark. The owner left with a brand new car. They said this business, don't take it wrong. Funny how business always knows who's strong. When workers fall, they call it the market. When owners fall, they open the government wallet. I ain't jealous of a man with a throne. I just wonder why the poor stand alone. If wealth is proof that a man's heart is clean, then every rich grave must be heaven's dream. They praise a man with the biggest check, while a broke man's dignity gets no respect. He can lie all day and still shake hands as long as his signature owns half the land. They say money can't buy happiness. Maybe that's true, but it buys forgiveness. It buys a lawyer, buys a chair, buys a clean reputation when the truth ain't there. So don't tell me gold, don't change the law. I seen closed doors open when the right man calls. I seen poor men judged by the clothes they wear, while rich men hide their sins in a millionaire's prayer. If heaven has a price, somebody already paid. If truth needs money, then truth has been betrayed. God bless the man who pays. God bless the hand with gold. Give him a seat beside the righteous, and let the poor wait in the cold. God bless the man who pays. There's the gospel that they know. When money speaks louder than the truth, everybody bows down low. I don't need your blessing, I don't need your chair. Just don't call it holy when corruption fills the air. You can buy the church bell, you can buy the town, but you can't buy the truth when the whole thing burns down. Feel whole. They can keep their golden doors, their titles and their praise. I learned a long time ago, money can't wash a man's sins away. Bible on the dashboard, sin in the trunk. He talks about salvation, but he knows what he's done. There's a Bible by the steering wheel, pages worn from years of use. He bows his head before he drives, then takes another road he shouldn't choose. He shakes hands outside the church, everybody calls him a good man. Nobody knows what's underneath the old black cover in the back. He talks about forgiveness, he talks about the Lord. Funny how a man can quote the Bible while hiding what he can't afford. Bible on the dashboard, sin in the trunk, clean words on his lips, dirty secrets underneath. Bible on the dashboard, heaven on his mind, but every mile he drives tonight leaves another truth behind. He tells the town to live with honor, says a man's word is all he's got, then signs another crooked contract and takes another piece of what they're not. He gives money to the church, gets his picture in the paper. The preacher calls him generous, nobody asks about the labor. I don't judge a man for having sins, I've got enough of mine to carry. I judge the man who hides behind virtue just to make his lies look holy. Bible on the dash, darkness in the back, everybody sees the cover, nobody checks the facts. He quotes a verse, then breaks a promise, talks about mercy, then forgets the people beneath him. They say faith is what you do when nobody's watching. Funny how some men only need faith when cameras are watching. A poor man walks into church, they see every scar. A rich man walks through the same door, they only see who he is. That's the trick of reputation, make the outside clean, and people stop asking what the inside means. Maybe the Bible isn't the problem, maybe it's the hands that turn the page. A holy word can't make a man honest if he chooses lies every day. Bible on the dashboard, sin in the trunk, clean words on his lips, dirty secrets underneath. Bible on the dashboard, heaven on his mind, but every mile it drives tonight leaves another truth behind. I don't need a perfect man, I don't need a spotless name. Just don't preach about forgiveness while refusing to face your shame. You can hide behind a sermon, you can hide behind a prayer, but when the road gets dark, the truth is still right in there. Sin in the trunk, sin in the trunk. He can drive beneath the church lights, but the past is never gone. Bible on the dashboard, Bible on the dashboard, and a heart he can't disguise. A man can fool an entire town, but he can't fool his own eyes. Keep the Bible on the dashboard, keep the secrets where you want, but every road eventually leads back to what you've done, 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 done. Kings don't sleep in cheap motels, they don't count change beneath neon lights, they don't wake up asking the ceiling if tomorrow will be alright. I spent one night beside the highway, in a room with a broken lock. The heater barely kept me breathing, the clock sounded louder than the cars. Across the road stood a mansion, windows burning through the night. A man inside was talking freedom, while his driver waited outside. They tell us anybody can rise if he works hard enough. Funny how the ladder looks different when you're born beneath the first rung. Kings don't sleep in cheap motels, they don't dream beneath a leaking roof, they don't learn what hunger sounds like when the landlord comes for proof. in cheap motels. They don't count every dollar twice. It's easy to call the game fair when you've never paid the entry price. I met a man who worked construction, building houses he could never buy. He'd put marble in another man's kitchen, then went home beneath the coldest sky. The foreman said, be grateful, at least you've got a job. The owner drove past in a new car, while another worker lost his home. I don't hate the man with money, I don't need his life to prove my worth. I just question why the people building kingdoms always struggle to afford the dirt. They say anybody can make it, that's a story they repeat. But some men start with land and lawyers, some start barefoot in the street. They call it equal opportunity, the measure everyone the same. Never ask who paid the first bill, never ask who built the game. A worker builds the mansion, a banker owns the key. A politician praises freedom, then tells the poor to wait and see. They don't need to hate the poor, they just need to keep them far. A lot case is more about a kingdom than any golden sign can say. Maybe I'm not meant to be a king, maybe I don't need the crown. But don't tell me we're standing equal when some were never allowed inside. Kings don't sleep in cheap motels, they don't dream beneath a leaking roof. They don't learn what hunger sounds like when the landlord comes for proof. Kings don't sleep in cheap motels, they don't count every dollar twice. It's easy to call the game fair when you've never paid the entry price. I don't need the marble staircase, I don't need the golden chair. Give me a room I can call mine, and a future I can actually afford. Maybe dignity ain't riches, maybe freedom ain't a crown. Maybe being able to sleep at night is enough to make a man proud. Much more. Kings don't sleep in cheap motels, and maybe that's their loss. They own the rooms above the city, but they never know the cost. Let them keep their kingdoms, let them keep the keys. I don't need to be a king to know what freedom means. Rich men fear poor men with nothing left to lose. Not when we're hungry, but when we finally refuse. factory, they took the land, they took the house from a working man's hands. They said be patient, better days will come, but patience gets quiet when there's nowhere left to run. My neighbor sold his truck, my brother lost his job. The town kept getting poorer, while the courthouse stayed polished. They weren't afraid when we were tired, they weren't afraid when we were broke. They only started watching when we stopped believing their hope. Rich men fear poor men with nothing left to lose. They don't fear our hunger, they fear when we refuse. Rich men fear poor men who finally see the game. When you have nothing left to protect, you stop protecting their name. Came with papers, the mayor came with words, the preacher came with patience. While nothing here got better, they told us stay respectful, don't question what you see. Funny how respect is always demanded by the ones who hold the key. I don't want their mansion, I don't want their gold, I just want the life they promised when I was young. But promises get cheaper when the people can't afford to leave, and power gets nervous when the powerless stop believing. They fear a man who ain't afraid of losing. They fear a voice that money can't confuse. They fear empty pockets that can't be bought. They fear a worker who finally sees what his labor costs. They call us angry, they call us dangerous. They never call themselves the reason we're furious. A poor man with nothing is easy to ignore until he stops asking and starts asking what for. They built their walls to keep the poor outside. Now they're looking through the windows wondering why we stop knocking. I don't need revenge, I don't need the crown, I just need the courage to stop kneeling down. Rich men fear poor men with nothing left to lose. They don't fear our hunger, they fear when we refuse. Rich men fear poor men who finally see the game. When you have nothing left to protect, you stop protecting their name. You can take my house, you can take my car, you can take the little that I thought was mine, but you can't take my voice unless I give it away. And I won't trade my dignity for another empty promise. Left to fear. They took almost everything, they just forgot one thing. A man's dignity doesn't belong to the highest bidder. Hell is better manners than men. At least the devil tells you why. handshake and hide a loaded promise, while a clean smile hides the lie. Shook my hand and promised hope. He said, trust me, we're family here. Then disappeared when the money got near. He spoke so softly, dressed so clean. Said everything wasn't what it seemed. Funny how the worst betrayal can arrive wearing the face of a friend. The devil never promised mercy. He never called himself my friend. But men will swear they're standing with you and sell you when the numbers make sense. Hell has better manners than men. The devil at least knows what he wants. Men will smile while they betray you, then tell you that they did it for your own. Hell has better manners than men. At least the fire doesn't pretend. I'd rather face an honest enemy than trust a liar calling himself a friend. My brother promised he would stay, then sold the house and walked away. He said nothing personal, it's business. Funny how blood becomes a business word. The preacher talked about forgiveness. The banker talked about success. Both had something they wanted from me. Both called to taking generosity. I don't believe every man is cruel. I've known good people in bad times, but I've learned that polished manners don't tell you what's behind the eyes. They shake your hand and take your ground. They call you brother, then sell you out. They talk about honor, they talk about trust and choose the money. When the pressure comes, the devil gets blamed for everything wrong. Maybe mankind has been helping along. A man can hurt you without raising his voice. He can destroy your life, they call it a choice. They don't need horns, they don't need flames. Sometimes evil just knows your name. I stopped fearing monsters a long time ago. I fear the man who knows my weakness and still decides to use it. Hell has better manners than men. The devil at least knows what he wants. Men will smile while they betray you, then tell you that they did it for your own. Hell has better manners than men. At least the fire doesn't pretend. I'd rather face an honest enemy than trust a liar calling himself a friend. Don't tell me you're righteous because you wear clean clothes. Don't tell me you're honest because nobody knows. Character isn't what you show when everybody's watching. Character's what remains when there's something worth taking. don't fear the devil anymore. I've met worse in daylight. Printed clean on paper. Everybody called it business while somebody else paid later. He stood beneath the conference lights, talking numbers like they were true. He promised jobs, promised growth, promised everyone would benefit. The papers looked official, the signatures looked clean. Nobody asked what happened to the people in between. A lie sounds different when millions call it fact. Put enough money behind it and people stop looking back. It was $1 million lie, wrapped in numbers and suits. They called it an investment while they buried the truth. It was $1 million lie. Everybody played along. The money made it look legitimate, but the damage made it wrong. A factory promised expansion and close the doors instead. A family trusted every word, then lost the roof above their heads. The company called it unfortunate, the shareholders called it smart. Nobody mentioned the workers who had given them the best years of their lives. The man behind the deal still shook hands around the town. He gave a speech about the future while the people counted what they lost. $1 million lie don't sound like a lie, it sounds like strategy when the member the right. Put it in a contract, put it on the news, give it to a lawyer, let the public choose. Call it market pressure, call it necessary change, call the people collateral and pretend that's just a game. A poor man lies, they call him a criminal. A rich man lies, they call him visionary. One loses his freedom, one buys another company. Same deception, different consequences. You don't need to steal when you redefine the rules. You don't need a mask when money makes the lie look true. I don't care how polished the numbers look tonight. If people were destroyed to make the profit right, then somebody needs to name. It was $1 million lie, wrapped in numbers and suits. They called it an investment while they buried the truth. It was $1 million lie. Everybody played along. The money made it look legitimate, but the damage made it wrong. Maybe the biggest lies don't need to be spoken. They live inside documents until the damage is already done. You can buy a better lawyer, you can buy a cleaner name, but you can't change the people who remember what you took away. call it business, but a fortune built on lies still has to answer for the damage. The good man died paying his debts, still owing more than he could give. He spent his whole life being responsible, but never had enough left to live. He woke before the sunrise, put his boots beside the door, worked until the daylight faded, then worked a little more. He paid the rent, paid every bill, paid the doctor when he could. He never asked for charity, just tried to do what good men should. Every month another payment, every year another cost. He kept calling it responsibility, while another piece of life was lost. The good man died paying his debts, with his hands still warm from work. He gave the world his strongest years, then left with nothing but the hurt. The good man died paying his debts, still trying to make things right. They called him responsible all his life, but never asked if he was alright. He was alright. His daughter needed college, his wife needed medicine. He took another weekend shift and promised they'd be fine again. The bank said he was fortunate because they approved another loan. Funny how being called responsible means owing more than you can own. He watched his friends retire while he was still working late. He said, I'll rest when this is over, but the debt kept changing shape. Pay the mortgage, pay the car, pay the doctor, pay the card, pay the interest, pay the tax, pay them all before it gets here. They call it discipline, they call it pride, but sometimes responsibility is just another word for never getting to live. He never missed a payment, never missed a day, still couldn't buy enough time to watch his children grow. The system praised his credit, the neighbors praised his name. Nobody asked why a good man had to work himself into the grave. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't careless, he did everything they told him. So why was survival still so expensive? The good man died paying his debts, with his hands still warm from work. He gave the world his strongest years, then left with nothing but the hurt. The good man died paying his debts, still trying to make things right. They called him responsible all his life, but never asked if he was alright. A man's worth ain't his credit score, a life ain't measured by what it owes. If responsibility cost every dream, then somebody needs to question the price. He wanted one quiet Sunday, he wanted time with his son, he wanted to see the harvest, before his own season was done. He didn't leave them wealth or gold, he left them why they shouldn't live the same. The good man died paying his debts, and the ledger closed too late. A man can spend his whole life being good and still deserve a better fate. They called him responsible, called him strong. Maybe they should have asked how long a man can carry a weight before the weight becomes his life. The highway never forgave me. It only carried me away. Every mile I put behind me still followed me the next day. Town before the morning light, one old truck and a restless mind. The rear view showed a life I knew, but every road kept leading back to you. I changed my name in another town, found a cheap room and kept my head down. But a man can cross 1,000 lines and still carry yesterday inside. They say a man can start again if he works and pays his debt. Funny how they say forgive and forget, they never let you forget. The highway never forgave me, it only gave me miles. I kept running from my shadow while the world kept wearing smiles. The highway never forgave me, every road remembered why. You can leave the place behind you, but you can't outrun your mind. But you can't outrun your mind. I met a preacher in a roadside town. He said, son, redemption can be found. I asked him how much forgiveness cost. He looked away like he knew what I'd lost. A banker told me your past is yours, then sold my history to someone richer. Funny how records never disappear when they can be used to keep a man down. I don't defend the things I've done. Some roads were mine, some choices wrong. But if redemption means forever paying, then tell me how a man moves on. They say be better, I try. They say move on, I ride. They say the past should stay behind, then use it every time. They need a reason to define. A rich man changes companies, a poor man changes his name. One gets called ambitious, the other gets called the same old shame. They love redemption when it's easy to sell. They love forgiveness when the story looks well. But give a broken man a second chance, and suddenly everybody remembers his first mistake. Maybe the road ain't cruel, maybe people are. The highway never promised me forgiveness, it only promised somewhere far. The highway never forgave me, it only gave me miles. I kept running from my shadow while the world kept wearing smiles. The highway never forgave me, every road remembered why. You can leave a place behind you, but you can't outrun your mind. I stopped asking roads to save me, I stopped asking towns to care. I learned the hardest distance is the one between regret and repair. I can't change the blood behind me, I can't erase what I became, but I can stop running from the mirror every time it says my name. That they don't count. The highway never forgave me, and tonight I won't ask it to. I'll carry every mile behind me, but I'll choose what I do. The road didn't save me, the road didn't blame me, it just kept moving, so I finally did too. The sheriff owns the prison, the judge knows his name. He writes the rules in daylight, then profits from the blame. There's a jailhouse at the edge of town, black bar shining underneath the sun. The sheriff says he keeps us safe, but every road leads back to where he runs. He knows who gets arrested, he knows who gets released, he knows which man can buy his way out and which man stays beneath the keys. He calls it order, he calls it law, but when one man holds every key, who watches him? The sheriff holds a prison, the sheriff holds the keys. He writes the rules, enforces them, then tells us this is liberty. The sheriff owns a prison, and everybody knows his name. When the man who controls the cage also controls the game. poor man stole a loaf of bread, spent the night behind the steel. A businessman stole from half the town and somehow never saw a cell. The sheriff called it complicated, said these things take time. Funny how justice moves so slowly when the accused can afford a lawyer. I don't believe every prisoner is innocent, I don't believe every cop is cruel. But when the same hand holds the badge and cage, power needs somebody watching too. He owns the badge, he owns the key, he owns the story everybody's supposed to believe. He says trust the law, I ask which one? The one that protects the powerful or the one that protects everyone? He knows the records, he knows the judge, he knows who gets mercy and who gets crushed. A man can't control a town without ever firing a shot. Give him enough authority and people forget to ask what it costs. A cage ain't justice just because it's legal. The badge ain't holy just because it's official. If one man controls the door, then someone should have watched the guard. Power without a question turns the law into a weapon. The sheriff owns a prison, the sheriff holds the keys. He writes the rules, enforces them, and tells us this is liberty. The sheriff owns a prison, and everybody knows his name. When the man who controls the cage also controls the game. I don't want chaos, I don't want fear. I want a law that stands the same when the powerful are near. If the badge means justice, let justice face the light. If the cage is for the guilty, then nobody should own the key. Start asking questions, that's when power starts to fall. The cage has a lock, the lock has a key, and every key needs somebody watching. Whiskey knows my sins better than the preacher does. It never asked me to be clean, it only asked me what I've done. Keep a bottle underneath the bed for all the things I never said. Every scar's got a name, every empty glass remembers the same. Mama prayed I'd change my ways, but some nights stretch into endless days. I tell myself tomorrow I'll be new, then pour another glass like sinners always do. They point at me when I walk through town, say I'm drinking my whole life down. Funny how they never point that way at the clean-cut men who sin in daylight. Whiskey knows my sins secret, every lie. He knows the nights I couldn't sleep, and every time I ask God why. Whiskey knows my sins, but it never called me clean. I'd rather face the bottle's truth than trust a man who hides behind his dream. There's a man downtown in a tailored suit who never gets blamed for the things he does. He shakes hands beneath the courthouse lights and then goes home sleeping easy at night. He says I'm wasting what little I own while he wastes lives from a marble throne. They call me broken because I drink but never ask what makes a good man sink. I ain't defending every road I chose. I know the way to what I broke. But if we're counting sins tonight, put every name beneath the light. I got whiskey in the glass, regret in the chest, a history of mistakes that I never confessed. They want a sinner they can understand, a poor man's failure they can put in their hands. But respectability ain't proof you're clean. A suit can hide things that a bottle can't mean. You judge the man sitting drunk at the bar while somebody richer is raising a scar. You call my bottle the source of my shame, but money and power can poison a name. Maybe I'm guilty, maybe I'm lost, but at least I know exactly what it costs. Whiskey knows my sins, every secret, every lie. He knows the nights I couldn't sleep, and every time I ask God why. Whiskey knows my sins, but it never called me clean. I'd rather face the bottle's truth than trust a man who hides behind his dream. If I fall, let me fall honest. If I break, let me break away. Don't give me another sermon from a man who never faced his mistakes. I don't need your pity, I don't need your throne. I'll spend enough nights learning how to face my own. My sins, and tonight I know them too. Every road I shouldn't have taken, every heart I put through hell. Whiskey knows my sins, but the bottle isn't my excuse. Tomorrow carry what I did, and let the truth decide what I become. The bottle never promised heaven, it only showed me what was there. Maybe that's why I keep it close when nobody else can stand the truth. They call me a cowboy with a criminal smile. I shake your hand and study you a while. Don't judge the hat, don't trust the grin. You never know what kind of road I've been. town just before the rain. Black hat low, hiding half my name. The bartender asked where I'd been. I smiled real slow and ordered whiskey again. I don't start trouble, I don't make a scene. I just know things that I'd rather keep unseen. There's a wanted poster hanging by the door, but the face ain't mine anymore. They trust a man when he speaks real nice, never ask what he did to earn that life. A clean-cut smile can hide a loaded gun, and a polished man can be the dangerous one. I'm a cowboy with a criminal smile, been walking these roads for a long, long while. They see the boots, they see the grin, they never ask where I've really been. I'm a cowboy with a criminal smile, I learned how to survive in style. If you want the truth, don't ask my name, ask what kind of man walks away from shame. Walks away from shame. The sheriff came in wearing polished boots, talking about law while hiding the truth. He knew my face, but he knew me well, so neither of us had a story to tell. He said, around here we respect good men. I looked at his badge and smiled again. Funny how respect changes shape when the right man can make a mistake disappear. They call me dangerous because I don't explain, but respectable men can do the same. They steal with contracts, lie with a smile, then call themselves honest. All the while, I learned from the streets, I learned from the rain. I learned every favor always comes with a chain. You can hide your crimes behind a tailored suit. You can shake 10 hands and still be rotten to the roots. They want a villain with a face they can blame, but sometimes the worst man is the one with the cleanest name. I ain't saying I'm innocent, I ain't saying I'm proud, but don't call yourself righteous just because you fooled the crowd. I'm a cowboy with a criminal smile, been walking these roads for a long, long while. They see the boots, they see the grin, they never ask where I've really been. I'm a cowboy with a criminal smile, I learned how to survive in style. If you want the truth, don't ask my name, ask what kind of man walks away from shame. I got scars beneath this leather, stories buried underneath. Some I regret, some I keep. I don't need your forgiveness, I don't need your praise. I've survived enough men who hide behind respectable names. Judge the skin, but you can't know the war I've carried within. I'm a cowboy with a criminal smile. Maybe I'm guilty, maybe that's right, but the cleanest man in this whole damn town may be the one who's never been found out. So keep your judgment, keep your law. I've seen what respectable men are for. I'll ride before the morning light, leaving every clean lie behind.